You ever wonder how deep our biases really go and like how fast they can just pop up? We're going to dive into this incredible classroom experiment that took the whole idea of equality and in just a handful of minutes made discrimination feel painfully real for a bunch of kids. Trust me, what happened in that room, it's a lesson for all of us.
So it all kicked off when a teacher walked into their classroom. Now, they'd talked about equality before, done the lessons, but the kids were still sitting in separate rows, boys on one side, girls on the other. And when the teacher asked why, one of the boys just comes out with it. Girls are too noisy.
Yeah, and this wasn't some seating chart the teacher made. Nope, this was all them. They chose to do this. Despite all the lectures and lessons, the kids had literally created their own little segregated society. You can imagine the teacher just standing there kind of shocked, realizing that all those words, they just weren't sinking in at all.
And look, it wasn't a one-way street either. The feeling was totally mutual. The girls had their own list of complaints, saying things like, they don't listen to us. It was just this perfect little microcosm of an us versus them world, playing out right there between the desks.
And that was the moment. The teacher decided, okay, that's it. Forget the textbook. It was time for a lesson the students wouldn't just hear, but would actually feel. Time to take this thing from a bunch of abstract ideas and make it very, very real. So the teacher starts laying down these new rules, and they are completely absurd, all based on gender. A girl asks for a drink of water. Nope, the teacher says, can't, there are boys over there. A boy asks, same thing. Sorry, girls are present. And it just gets crazier. You can't borrow that pencil, a boy touched it. You can't drink from that water bottle, your mother, a woman, filled it. The logic made absolutely no sense, but the rules were enforced like law.
Well, as you can imagine, the tension just skyrocketed. Pretty soon, the boys decide to claim the teacher's desk as their territory. The girls, not having any of it, rush up to pull it back, yelling that it belongs on their side. And just like that, what started with grumbling turned into a full-on physical tug of war. The whole classroom just exploded into chaos.
And here is the absolute wildest part of this whole thing. This entire social breakdown, from kids sitting apart to a literal tug of war over a desk. It all happened in just 15 minutes. 15. That's all it took for these little biases to get turned into weapons and for the whole room to just fall apart.
Right at the peak of all this chaos, the teacher just yells and everything freezes. Dead silence. And in that quiet, the teacher asks one simple but incredibly powerful question. What did you learn? Not who's to blame or who started it, but what did you learn from this? And that was the whole point. The teacher explained that this feeling of chaos, this anger, this intense unfairness, that's just a tiny little taste of what people have to deal with every single day because of their gender or their religion or where they come from. For 15 minutes, they had just lived discrimination.
This gets at a really key difference between interaction and engagement. Interaction is simple, right? It's like you like a video. It's a quick transaction. But what those kids experienced, that was engagement. Deep, sensory, lived experience. They didn't just hear a lecture about bias, they were forced to feel it in their bones. And that's something you don't forget.
So, this incredibly powerful way of teaching, it actually has a name. It's called experiential learning. It's a theory made famous by a guy named David Kolb. And the whole idea is pretty simple, really. The best, most lasting learning happens when you learn by doing something and then, critically, taking the time to think about what you just did.
Kolb's model actually has 4 stages, and you can see how the students went through every single one. First up is feeling, the concrete experience. For them, that was the chaos, the unfair rules, the anger. Then came watching, the reflective part. That's when the teacher stopped everything and made them look at what just happened. After that, you've got thinking, the big aha moment, where they connect those raw feelings to the big idea of discrimination. And the last step, doing. That's them deciding on their own to sit together.
Okay, so here's where it gets really cool. Kolb says we all process experiences along 2 main, let's call them highways. The first one is how we grasp information. Are you a feeling person who dives right in, or a thinking person who analyzes from a distance? The second highway is how we transform that information. Are you a watcher who reflects on it, or a doer who wants to jump in and experiment?
And when you mix and match these, you get 4 basic learning styles. If you combine feeling and watching, you're a diverger. You're imaginative, empathetic, you see all the possibilities. If you're all about thinking and watching, you're an assimilator. Super logical, you love building theories.
Then there's the converger, who mixes thinking and doing. You're the practical one, the problem solver. And finally, the accommodator, who's all feeling and doing. You learn by getting your hands dirty, you trust your gut.
Okay, now here's where this whole theory gets super personal. One of the sources we looked at had this amazing line. It said, "Forget the old horoscope. This is the new one for building relationships." And honestly, I kind of love that.
I mean, just think about your own life for a second. Are you the person who needs a spreadsheet for a vacation, a total assimilator, while your partner is the let's just book the flight and figure it out type, a classic accommodator? Understanding these deep-seated differences in how you operate, it can totally change the game in your relationships. Suddenly, fights become, oh, that's just how you're wired.
And what's really powerful is that opposites can actually make the perfect team. Imagine you have a strong watcher, someone who's great at taking a step back and seeing the whole picture. You pair them with a strong doer who's all about taking action. Together, they literally complete the learning cycle. One person observes, the other one acts. It's this incredible synergy where their strengths cover each other's gaps.
Which brings us right back to where we started, that classroom. So after all the feeling, the watching, and the thinking, what was the last step? The doing. And what did they do? Without even being told, they all just got up and rearranged themselves, boys and girls sitting together. They erased that invisible line they had drawn themselves just a little while ago. The lesson? It landed. So, let me just leave you with this to think about. When you're faced with something new, a challenge, a problem, what's your go-to? What's your gut reaction? Are you more of a feeler or a thinker? A watcher or a doer? Because figuring that out, that's the first step to really understanding not just how you learn, but how you build your entire world and all the relationships in it.